Zimmerman, the Chief Executive Officer of Rotech USA. Bruce, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Oh, thank you very much, Frank. Appreciate it.
I see what you're doing at Rotech USA, and I'm very excited to have the conversation. So if you would, start off by giving us a little bit of a background on yourself, and then background and current market status, so forth, of Rotech.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, my background starts from an engineering basis. I have a master's degree from Princeton in mechanical engineering and a master's from Clarkson on environmental engineering. I started my career with a company out of Finland, Alstrom Machinery, where I was working on projects that were involving pulp and paper, and I was on the water and wastewater side of that. In the 90s, US Filter bought that division, and I rolled into that bigger US Filter company and got an opportunity to be involved in a lot of different technology in different industries and municipal projects. That was the first time I actually ran into an Israeli technology that I worked a lot on, which was through Jacob Shore. It was a tubular microfilter. So one of the first times I brought a kind of an Israeli technology here to the US. Upon working through the transitions from US Filter to Veolia, I ultimately left Veolia back in 2012 to join a company called Desalitec, which was a reverse osmosis company with an advanced technology out of Israel. We grew that business up, brought it to the US, and in 2020 sold it to DuPont. For the last 3 years, I've been at DuPont, kind of integrating that new technology into DuPont Water's portfolio, as well as managing some of the industrial sales team for their other products like, their membranes and ion exchange resins. I guess that brings me to, leaving in May and joining Rotech. Rotech is another advanced reverse osmosis technology, trying to really plug some of the problems that we have with traditional RO. And it came out of Ben Gurion University in Israel in 2009. It's kind of when it rolled the university phase. Since that time, there's about 60 installations around the world. We've got customers like Singapore PUB, City of Santa Monica, industrial customers like Coca-Cola. We've worked with engineering firms like Brown and Caldwell, Jacobs. Last year, we got the distinction for Breakthrough Technology Company of the Year at the Global Water Summit. We've gotten Most Valuable Technology from Singapore International Water Week. So, it's an established technology and growing.
Your customer, it sounds like, is cities and big commercial?
Yeah, in general, we're talking about the municipal space where it would be, drinking water applications or wastewater reuse applications, seeing things like PFAS removal. So there's quite a bit of that. But then we also have quite a few industrial applications, from things like microelectronics to all the way to, refinery type spaces. So pretty broad application throughout industrial clients as well.
So you say in your mission statement, part of it is you vigorously push the boundaries of desalination to new levels. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I guess to clarify that a little bit for the broader audience, is that we're, it's not just desalination. We look at desalination, that word usually kind of brings up seawater applications. Like I mentioned, we're more focused, I would say, on the brackish water and industrial kind of space. But, what we're really trying to accomplish here is, we understand that, the world has a lot less pure water today than we had in the past. And we're starting to realize that some of the things we thought were pure are really compromised with things like parts per trillion contaminants like PFAS, right? So we really want to be as efficient as possible with the water that we have. And the Rotech solution and some of the other broader solutions that we have within WFI are really about being efficient and using the water as best we can, doing reuse. And when I talk about efficiency, particularly with Rotech and the flow reversal RO that we have, It's talking about getting to higher recoveries, having less waste when we use the RO, that we're throwing away less water. But I'm also talking about efficiency monetarily speaking too. You want to have a life cycle cost that's lower than the traditional alternative, because if you're going to go out there and try and save water and save the world, it's a lot more helpful if you're also saving money at the same time.
So so when you talk, you said, I think you said Coca-Cola is a customer.
Right.
So how are they using your products? Is it simply as because they obviously use a lot of water all over the world.
Correct. Correct. So an example like that would be, Coca-Cola actually using the product. They need a lot of water to go into their bottles, right? And a traditional RO might take 25% of the water that they pull out of a well and throw it away. We're trying to reduce that. We're going to make it so that it's much more efficient, and you might still have to discharge 5% of the water. But if you think about the difference between throwing away 25% and 5%, you've
Right.
reduced enormously the amount of waste that you're generating.
And for where they put their bottling operations, because we had conversations with them about a lot of things, and they want to be a good neighbor.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah. A lot of that
village, so to speak.
Right. And then there's also the opportunity to recycle wastewater and things like that. That's still things we're working with other companies, around the world, including talks with Coca-Cola. But Coca-Cola does a lot of that themselves. We're looking how they can reuse some of the wastewater, where they can take that back, how they can use that better. And reverse osmosis can be a part of that, to clean that water really to better than what the well water quality was to begin with, but also in order to do that in an efficient manner that's not going to have problems with biofouling and things that you might see with a traditional RO if you try to apply it to those type of applications. When you talk about Singapore PUB as an example, these wastewater recovery for large municipal applications, we're able to change recoveries from 75% to up over 90% on a wastewater application. And again, just be able to do that in a manner that doesn't cause operational headaches. So it's very valuable for them, particularly in a wastewater recovery setting too.
So it sounds like you have an economic impact, an environmental impact, and really a health impact.
Correct. Yeah, it really is covering several bases like that, right? So you're looking at the fact that we are going to provide something that in the end is more cost effective, and at the same time is giving you higher efficiencies, saving water, and helping the environment all at once. So it really is a win-win-win all the way around.
That's certainly cities against budgets, corporations against profitability and product quality.
Right. Yeah. No, when you look at the long-term costs associated with running a traditional kind of RO that's been around for 50 years, a lot of the cost is associated with throwing water away. That waste is very painful. But there's also the cost associated with operating the plants, changing out membranes, using harsh cleaning chemicals on a regular basis to keep those machines operating. We reduce all the impacts of that. We're able to make things operate in a much smoother fashion because of the resistance that our technology has to the cleaning, to the problems that cause cleaning, I should say, to scaling and fouling. So we reduce the impacts of scaling and fouling on those membranes, and it'll let you operate much more in a smooth fashion.
So you run the U.S. What's the marketing, sales impact? Is it, and maybe any development that you do in the U.S.? What does the company look like in the U.S.?
Yeah, so I really just started here with Rotec and was brought on board to build up this U.S. Footprint. The company's been run out of Israel. The main headquarters is in Israel, and I mentioned 60 installations around the world. But we're really starting up one of the first big installations at Santa Monica. It's a 10.5 MGD plant. That's a drinking water facility that we have retrofitted. So it was an existing RO that we've converted from a traditional RO to the flow reversal Rotec solution. and we increased recovery from 82% up to 91%. So they're cut the waste in half, right? Instead of throwing away 18%, you still have to discharge 9%, but that's reduced in half the impact there that you have on waste. So that's really the entree here to be the big reference in the U.S. And so we're starting to build up this as a U.S. company. And as far as employees here, I'm hiring right now. We have 3 employees that are based in the U.S. In addition to myself, and we're starting to build up that team. We still rely on the team in Israel, and they're out here to support. And as well as we have quite a bit of partners. So part of our strategy is as well to bring this technology to the world. And we don't have to sell these systems directly ourselves. We are partnering with other water companies to allow them to license and use the technology as well.
I've got a very significant background in distribution, of course, in technology, and the whole leverage of distribution makes a lot of sense, especially for a company entering the marketplace where you can go in and establish relationships with people who are already established with your potential customers and are trusted. And so when they walk through the door, they're already trusted. And when they're presenting a product, a solution, especially when you've got a reference like Santa Monica, that's a good entrance to the marketplace. So you've only been with Rotech since May. Not sure how familiar you are with GlobalWaterWorks, but as you look at GlobalWaterWorks, why do you think it's an advantage for you to have a value relationship with us?
So, I really love your mission. I love that you're a nonprofit organization dedicating to solve global water crises that are out there today, right? And solving it now. I think that water has an enormous potential for good or for evil, right? I think if it's not properly shepherded, we could see a future where there's a lot of suffering and even war because of water crisis, right? And don't want that to happen. So I think the idea of making global connections, sharing experiences, knowledge, and hope, right, is something that you guys do, right? And GlobalWaterWorks is leading the way in that. And I think that if we work together on these kind of things, that water can be a driver for peace instead, a peace and hope and the success there. So I think it's an amazing impact on the world, and we're kind of at a tipping point that could go either way. So I'm very happy to work with GlobalWaterWorks, and I think you guys are doing great work.
I appreciate that. So now back to you and Rotech, an Israeli company, but you're establishing yourself in the U.S. Where do you see the company going? Both, I see you're building a U.S. organization, but globally, how do you see the company growing over the next 18 to 36 months? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have that Santa Monica reference that's just starting up. So we're building up a lot of momentum here in the U.S. space, right? I think having the large market of the U.S. Is certainly going to be something that helps accelerate the growth. And the fact that we're talking about this retrofit solution that's at Santa Monica, there's a lot of places within the US from a municipal basis where I think we're going to see that interest in being able to just retrofit the machine and cut your waste in half and get some additional flow and reduce the load on your wells. So I expect to have a lot of business and a lot of growth here in the US just from looking at that perspective. But beyond that, the partnerships that we're developing within all the industrial spaces, as you mentioned, we can try and make our way in there ourselves, and we're certainly promoting the technology. But to partner with a company that already has the name and the recognition within semiconductor, microelectronic space, there's so much of that business that's coming back to the US, and they need to grow and build, and they need to do it in an efficient manner. Right? It's like 10 years ago, people might not have thought about high recovery RO, but now they do. And a lot of the companies and partners that we're working with are happy to look at our technology and help bring that to other industrial applications that haven't really embraced high recovery RO yet, but they're starting to now. And all of the semiconductor facilities are really looking to reduce waste when it comes to water in the new facilities they're building. So I see a large growth there going on with partners and in the municipal retrofit type space as we grow in the US. And I think that's going to be the short term. We still have a lot of presence globally, but I think it'll grow out from there to spread to some of the other applications around the world.
Certainly with Santa Monica, California, in many ways, is leads when it comes to efficient water efficiency, cleanliness, and so on and so forth. And it sounds like with the impact that you're having in Santa Monica, a lot with cutting it in half from 18% to 9%, it sounds like you're about a 10% giving them about a 10% increase in purified water, say quality water. That makes sense? That's about the numbers, right?
Right, right. Yep, for sure. In many cases, though, it is also about the waste and what you're able to do with that. And it sounds like, the 10% is good, right? It sounds like a good number, but when you tell somebody you're cutting their waste in half, especially in applications where that has to go in an evaporator or evaporation ponds, and you make the evaporation pond half as big, that's enormous, right? That's a big deal. But I should also comment, I guess, on some of the other references that we have. I mentioned Singapore PUB, and that's an example of, again, another one of those premier global worldwide recognized spaces for water reuse and things like that. And Singapore PUB, it was 5 years ago or so, where we went into the Kranji facility and retrofitted part of their plant where they're recovering wastewater, and we did about 3 million gallons a day worth of skids, and transformed that from a 75% recovery to a 90% recovery machine. And it only took us about 3 days, not 3 days, that would be nice, 3 weeks to retrofit it. But still, that's pretty fast on site to take a machine down and in 3 weeks convert it from 75% to 90% recovery. And they're so interested, they're looking at trying another different facility, a couple of applications and one's like 45 million gallon a day in size that they're looking to work with us on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time with me this afternoon. I look forward to talking with you in the future.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Frank.